Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this unique unit deep dive, we're going to be looking at the Berber's Camel Archer. With the popularity of cavalry archers at maybe an all-time high, it feels like this unit's moment to shine, since that's the exact unit they're specialized against. Now, a quick note before we start is if there are any AoE2 devs watching the video, you can turn it off now. The unit is perfectly balanced, and there's nothing to see here. Okay, I think they're gone. Sorry about that guys, but the thing is I really don't want the devs to look too closely and nerf the unit, as it's so much fun to use. But as we'll see, it's really good, quietly being a top 3 unique unit in my opinion, and I'll lay out the case for that. To start with a quick glance at their stats and cost, the obvious comparison of course is to the Cavalry Archer. Camel Archers are 10 wood more and have plus 5 HP, plus 1 attack, and plus 1 Pierce Armor, but nothing insanely powerful jumps out right away. Camel Archers are produced a little faster by default, though Cavalry Archers are somewhat easier to mass, as 3 archery ranges are much easier to save up for than 2 castles. One important stat not shown here is that Cavalry Archers have 50% accuracy, or maybe a little more in practice if you're at close range, whereas Camel Archers have a floor of 95% accuracy, so in a way Thumb Ring is less critical to get for those. Remember, the Heavy Cavalry Archer's accuracy was bumped from 50% to 80%, but the non-Heavy Cavalry Archer is still among the least accurate units in the game. In terms of upgrades, in general, the two are again very similar, including the Archer Blacksmith techs, Bloodlines, Thumb Ring, Ballistics, and Chemistry, with Berber's missing Parthian Tactics. Now, I mentioned Thumb Ring is a less important tech for Camel Archers because of their high base accuracy, but a counterpoint to consider is that Thumb Ring also has a greater impact on the Camel Archer's fire rate. That means with all upgrades, the Camel Archer fires a little faster than Cavalry Archers, in addition to having 1 more attack, which is more important than it might sound in a lot of matchups. In fact, once we include all their upgrades, Camel Archers in Castle Age end up being surprisingly comparable to a Heavy Cavalry Archer, in that comparison having similar HP, identical attack but a faster attack rate, still more Pierce Armor, and other stats being fairly equal. It's a good endorsement of the unit and indicates how strong it is right out of the gate, especially in terms of damage. We've gone over 2 minutes at this point without a graph though, which is making me a little antsy. So to put their attack output during Castle Age into perspective, here we have a variety of fully upgraded Castle Age ranged units, including the Crossbow, Cavalry Archer, and various Cavalry Archer unique unit variants. Factoring in their damage, attack rate, and accuracy after Thumb Ring, this is the Camel Archer's damage over time against enemies with increasing Pierce Armor, with obviously the more armor you're up against, the lower its damage will be over time. If we overlay those comparable ranged units on top, note that while the Camel Archer isn't always the best, it's near the front of the pack, well ahead of the regular Cavalry Archer, Crossbow, and often doing more damage than even the War Wagon or Conquistador. Next, let's touch on their secret bonus damage, which is plus 4 against Cavalry Archers and variants of those, including the melee version of the Bengali's Wrath. In exchange, unlike most Cavalry Archers and even Crossbows, they have no anti-spear bonus damage, and also unlike other camels in the game, have no anti-cavalry bonus damage either. This is where I think the Camel Archer becomes very counterintuitive and misunderstood, as this makes them feel like an overly specialized Cavalry Archer counter, and less useful overall than say the Berber's own Cavalry Archer or Crossbow line. Whereas in reality, as we've seen from their damage output alone, the Camel Archer is an incredible generalist unit, which just so happens to also have very niche bonus damage on the side. In return, they take bonuses from anything anti-camel, anti-archer, or anti-cavalry archer, though note they don't take any anti-cavalry bonus damage. And while that might seem like I'm splitting hairs, most units that have anti-cavalry bonuses have smaller bonuses against camels instead. The Camel Rider's plus 9 against cavalry is just plus 5 against camels for example, meaning the Berber's Camel Archer is less punished when running into cavalry counters, though it still takes the usual bonus damage from skirmishers and janitours, and things that are anti-archer, like Huskarls and Ghulams. This all means in addition to having more attack and attack rate than a Cavalry Archer with Thumb Ring, it's also more durable from greater HP and less bonus damage taken from some of their most dangerous counters. Already, you can maybe get a sense of how all these little advantages are going to quietly start compounding for the unit. Another one of those subtle advantages is it then has a shorter attack delay than Cavalry Archers. It's not flashy, but definitely something you notice as a player that makes the unit feel very smooth to micro in practice. So that's the unit with all of its parts individually, but now let's see how this all works together. First, we'll start with their most obvious strength, which is anytime their anti-cavalry archer bonus comes into play. It really should be no surprise they handle any cavalry archers, even top tier ones, pretty handily, unless they're up against say double the number of units. Similarly, the Cavalry Archer variants are generally losing here, at least value-wise, when it comes to the tankier war wagons or elephant archers. Now there is one really interesting case in the Mameluke, which does not count as a cavalry archer, but also doesn't have a bonus against camels, despite having one against cavalry. So the two end up exchanging no bonus damage at all, though I'd take the Camel Archer's extra range in this fight every time. Now, I do want to acknowledge the Camel Archer may not even be the Berber's most anti-cavalry archer unique unit, with the Genitor being another great option. It doesn't deal quite the same amount of damage with each attack, but is created from the archery range, and with its high armor does roughly as well with equal numbers for a cheaper cost. Outside this one instance, these two units are definitely not interchangeable, with the Camel Archer having way higher damage output and the Genitor being a trash unit. But in this one matchup, a comparison seems warranted. The main thing I want to get away from though is the idea that the Camel Archer only counters cavalry archers. So let's look at some other units they'll encounter and how much better they usually perform relative to both the crossbow and Berber's cavalry archer lines. First off, to just throw them against crossbows with balanced resources, while the crossbows do have a one range advantage not captured here, there's a clear edge for Camel Archers. Generally, Camel Archers perform perfectly fine against anything outside maybe top tier archers, or a few archer unique units like Genoese crossbows. That isn't a trivial point, as swapping them out with the same number of cavalry archers in that same test is instead a losing battle. Another important matchup is against elite skirmishers. Here, with equal numbers, the Camel Archers win, though it's not actually a good trade given the skirmishers' cheaper cost and bonus damage. What's worth highlighting though is how massive the Camel Archers +1 attack is here, with Camel Archers doing 3 damage per shot compared to the regular Cavalry Archers 2 and the crossbows 1, even without considering the Camel Archer also has the fastest attack in this group as well. It's a very similar situation against Eagles, where that +1 attack can mean a third more or up to double the damage per shot you get from other ranged options. I've emphasized it before, but Camel Archers are a great example of why +1 Pierce attack can be so much more impactful than +1 melee attack, as it feels like there's so many more high Pierce armor units than high melee armor ones, even if the coolest ones of course have high melee armor. We can also consider the Knight line here. While it's true that with balanced resources and no micro, the Camel Archer loses, it's a surprisingly close fight, with the Camel Archer again dealing 25% more damage than a Cavalry Archer per shot, and 67% more damage per shot than a crossbow. With very pedestrian micro and a bit of open space, I wouldn't even say Knights counter a decent mass of Camel Archers, which is kind of true for generic Cavalry Archers as well, but the shorter attack delay and higher damage of the Camel Archer makes them just feel better here. In fact, with a solid mass of them, they even handily counter a similar number of camels with micro, at least if you have a lot of space to work with. Camel Archers take about half the bonus that regular cavalry do, and the Camel Riders' low Pierce armor makes them feel like less of a hard counter than they might seem on paper. Saracen heavy camels or Imperial camels are maybe a different story, but I definitely prefer Camel Archers over Cavalry Archers here. Maybe the one place you could argue Camel Archers aren't your strongest option is defending your own cavalry against pikemen. While pikes do less bonus damage to camels than against other cavalry, your other ranged options here have bonuses against pikes. So in fairness, I'll concede Camel Archers are solid, but not the best option here, especially when cost is taken into account. While we're talking about things they aren't ideal against, we'd also have to throw in Siege because of those units' high Pierce armor. That said, Camel Archers are technically doing 3 times as much damage to mangonels as crossbows per shot, which situationally can be a pretty big deal, making those a bit less scary than they are for many ranged units. The +1 attack also means they handle palisade walls fairly easily, doing double the damage to palisade walls as a crossbowman for example. Most other buildings have enough armor to reduce their attack to just 1, and the Camel Archer is definitely not anti-building, but is good for a surprise breakthrough a palisade wall in early Castle Age. Once they're in, they then take out villagers one shot sooner than Cavalry Archers, though on the other hand, they do take an extra bonus damage from all town center and tower arrows, somewhat annoyingly, as that's just a bonus those things have against camels. It's maybe the one downside of being a camel over cavalry, that town center arrows do 5 instead of the expected 4 damage to you in Castle Age raids, but remember you also have an extra Pierce armor to offset it. Overall though, I don't know if you can tell, I think this unit is really good, and the crazy part is it's what they can do in Imperial Age that made me fall in love with them, so let's move on to that. Now admittedly, they're not a cheap unit to upgrade. First, you need to make them elite, which comes at a similar cost to Heavy Cavalry Archer, swapping food for wood. Though a wood cost is often better, as food is at such a premium for other Imperial Age upgrades and is collected slower than wood. For that cost, you get more HP, attack, melee armor, and increased bonus damage against Cavalry Archers. Remember, they started being similar to a heavy cavalry archer in strength during Castle Age, so of course are now better in terms of stats, though they still cost 10 more wood each. One caveat here is since Berbers lack Parthian tactics, some other heavy cavalry archers can end up with more armor, and Turks having 20 more HP in particular will mean their cavalry archers are much more durable, while the elite Mangudai also deals more damage overall, so it's hard to call the elite Camel Archer the best cavalry archer variant in Imperial Age, but it does beat those other ones head to head, thanks to bonus damage. Maybe just as important as the elite upgrade though are then their unique tags. In Castle Age, you can get the first one, Casbah, which benefits Camel Archers as well as everything else at the castle by increasing its work rate. That's worth grabbing, but the big one for our purposes here is the Imperial Tech, letting them heal 15 HP per minute. That's just a tenth the healing rate of a monk, but remember this is happening passively, both while you fight and in between combat for every unit, meaning once you get your elite Camel Archer mass, their value can be insane. Of course, they are very expensive to tech into when we add this all up, as we're taking the large set of Cavalry Archer relevant upgrades and adding in 2 unique techs and an elite upgrade. To look at what you're getting at the end of that upgrade chain though, here we have the elite Camel Archer's damage against units ranging from 3 to 7 pierce armor in the case of the Paladin. Adding in a selection of other ranged units, one takeaway might be how insane the elite Mangudai's damage output is, but note the elite Camel Archer is still largely ahead of the pack. The elite Arambai at 1 tile range probably shouldn't even be here, as this ignores overkill, and you'll never capture this damage fully at scale. To quickly check in on a few interesting matchups in Imperial Age, it's a very similar situation to Castle Age, with Camel Archers beating Arbalesters with equal resources, now adding in the ability to heal after the fight. Everything earlier about fighting high armor units like elite skirmishers is also true again, dealing a third more damage per shot than heavy cavalry archers, and double the damage that Arbalesters would do here. There is a slight wrinkle though, which is that heavy cavalry archer with Parthian tactics trades similarly in this matchup. So maybe we can say some good cavalry archer civs can close the gap a bit in terms of the Camel Archer's versatility, though heavy cavalry archer is a great unit in Imperial Age, so that's not an unflattering comparison at all. Other notable matchups include elite Camel Archers doing a quarter more damage against Paladins compared to heavy cavalry archers, taking half the bonus again from heavy camels, and then less bonus damage from halberdiers, albeit without doing any anti-spear bonus damage in return. In practice though, while there's a large upfront cost in getting them fully upgraded, I hope the takeaway is how incredibly versatile the unit is, and how their small advantages add up. While it's tempting to think of them as an anti-cavalry archer cavalry archer, I'd argue that bonus is a misdirect on a great generalist unit. Even their counters like skirmishers can go down surprisingly quickly, and where other units may have bonuses at play, such as against spearmen, it's not like Camel Archers couldn't be easily microed to win against those. The easier micro within healing gives them a couple of important intangibles, and on their own can be an incredibly difficult unit to handle by all but the best siege or camel civilizations. In terms of ways they can complement other units, and especially a late-game army composition, their weakness to siege makes Berber discounted Hussars a very natural pairing to handle those as well as soak up damage from skirmishers. Another, admittedly expensive pairing includes heavy camels, which in a team game can help a lot against Paladin. Notably, everything here is vulnerable to spearmen though, and that's where the Berber's fully upgraded hand cannons or nearly fully upgraded champions can be mixed in to help out as well. Berbers then also have bombard cannons to potentially add to all of these combinations, as something anti-building and also anti-onager. As a fun fact, the word onager actually refers to wild donkeys, as the catapult would kick back after every shot, and soldiers likened it to a kicking donkey. Find that and other interesting facts in my new book series, Spirit of the Wild, a 40-volume set full of animal facts. It took forever to write, but a website to sell them took just minutes thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time all in one place. Using their built-in templates, you can easily customize a website to your preferred aesthetic and what you're looking to do with it. That could include selling physical goods or digital content, including access to your own video library, with Squarespace handling the payment side of things so you can focus on the bigger picture. The search engine optimization tools then help your website show up in searches more often, so you can continue to grow and scale your business more effectively. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. that was a look at the Berber's Camel Archer, and why I consider it quite possibly the best unique unit in the game after the manga die, which remember is a unit they handle pretty easily as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.